Here at the Melanin Initiative, we simplify medical information into language you can understand. We create a safe space to ask your questions and share a nursing perspective. Do you know that understanding your skin, hair, and nails is one of the ways to set your child up for lifelong health and confidence? It's true. Today, we're diving into a topic that might surprise you: why skin, hair, and nails look different on everyone, and how to explain this in a way your kids actually get and love. And trust me, this isn't just about teaching your kids what their body is made of, it's about helping them feel confident in their own skin from a young age and understanding what's going on beneath the surface with the help of our second-time guest, Dr. Shannon Trotter, a dermatologist and host of a podcast called Dermat Trotter Don't Swear About Skincare. If you're new here, welcome to the Melanin Initiative. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner and one of your co-hosts here at the Melanin Initiative, along with Alicia and Geraldine, who send their love in their absence. We're a health literacy podcast. When we say health literacy, we're talking about your ability to obtain information, to understand it, and then to use it to manage your health and advocate for others. We have two missions here. The first is to promote that health literacy, both amongst the public and our peers. The second is to elevate the expertise of nurses, to bring awareness to all the diverse career opportunities that exist in the healthcare industry, and to let our peers know all the ways that they can leverage their expertise, both as clinicians and entrepreneurs. If you haven't already, this is your chance to subscribe. Leave us a comment or two, thumbs up the video, give us a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. Every time you interact with our platform like that, it shows the algorithm that this information is important, so that when people like you look for topics like this, we'll show up higher in their search results. This show is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed here are our opinions alone. They are not a representation of any of our affiliations. If you think you might be experiencing a medical emergency, you seek medical attention and medical guidance from your healthcare provider. If you think you might be having a physical emergency, you should call 911. If you or someone you know might be having a mental health emergency, you can call 988 or text 741-741. Now, today, our guest is a return guest. So now she's officially alumni of the Melanin Initiative Podcast. She was born and raised in Xenia, Ohio. This powerhouse went from hometown hero to national leader in dermatology. She earned her stripes at the University of Dayton, sharpened her skills at Ohio University College of Osteopathic Medicine, and took her talents to Boston University for a fellowship in skin cancer, becoming one of the sharpest minds in high-risk skin cancer care. She now calls Doc's Dermatology home. She's busy running 2 busy practices, training up the next generation of derm PAs and NPs and medical assistants, and still making time to lead clinical trials, educate medical residents and students, and host podcast episodes on her new show. Put your hands together once again for the brilliant, dedicated, and always delightful Dr. Shannon Trotter. Welcome back, Dr. Trotter.
Thank you so much. You're so kind. It's great to be back on your podcast.
So this is a fun one. You're helping us introduce our new series on anatomy and physiology, one of my favorite topics. And we know that none of us really are taught all the names of the different body parts that we have. Yet we expect you to go home and take care of all of it. And we see this in the way that even adults talk about their different body parts. And we want people to feel really comfortable being able to explain what they're feeling, where they're feeling it, or where their concerns are, whether they're talking to their family or their healthcare provider. And we're hoping by introducing this topic for kids that we're making it easy for parents to begin that as early as possible. But before we jump into that, we want to do our little icebreaker. So last time you played with us in our 5 questions in 5 minutes. But this time, because we are talking to children, I thought it would be nice to spend the first few minutes if you could just tell us about your children.
Yes, I have 3 little ones. They're 6, 4, and 2. I have Vera is 6, and followed by Clive, he's 4, and Rosamond is 2. And they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of joy that they bring to my life, but also a lot of challenges as I'm learning to explain things to them. Just like you mentioned, body parts and skin, and they're at an age where they're noticing different things. So, if somebody happens to pass gas or something, they're all making fun of it and teasing each other. And, bodily functions have fun to them, and they think they're hilarious, of course, if they see things. So it's a lot of fun to kind of educate them on their body and what's normal and get them really feeling comfortable about it.
Oh, well, good. And I think you're a pro at this. You do this every day, right? Not only in clinic, but outside of clinic. And so we just thank you for having fun with us. And like you said, many parents, they avoid these body-related conversations because they feel unprepared or unsure of what's age appropriate. And we know kids ask big questions about their bodies, sometimes in the inappropriate places. And we hope this episode at the end of the day will give them the confidence they need to answer those questions and to give them the right answers. So we'll go step by step through the skin, hair, and nails. We'll use graphics to explain the anatomy in a kid-friendly way, and we'll answer some common kid questions and talk about skin, hair, and nail conditions so that they can keep them healthy. Our main guest star today is going to be Ava. She's a 7-year-old, energetic second grader from Southeast DC. She loves art, playing soccer, and pretending to be a hairstylist with her dogs. Lately, she started asking a lot of questions about her body, especially when she notices differences between herself and her classmates. One evening after bath time, Ava pointed out the little white half moons on her mom's fingernails and asked, "Why don't mine look the same?"
Mhm.
Then, while combing her hair, she complained about the tiny bumps on the back of her arms and asked why her hair feels different from her friend Bella's, who has straight hair. Ava's mom, Dominique, realized she didn't feel confident explaining what skin, hair, and nails are made of, or how to talk about the uniqueness of their black and brown skin in a way that feels empowering and understandable for a 7-year-old. So let's see if we can help both of them out. I'm going to pull up our graphic,
Okay.
and then we'll start talking about the skin. And I'll see. Yeah, there we go. Hey.
Beautiful.
All right. So let's see here. So, first question is let's talk about the skin in terms of it being the largest organ of the body and what it does.
Yeah, the skin's pretty impressive. Like you said, it is the largest organ of the body. And a lot of people are like, why do we even have skin? And I like to explain to kids, skin is protecting you. It's kind of like your armor, your blanket that kind of protects your body. And it's really helping protect yourself from kind of the outside world. And I'll tell kids, it's protecting you from germs, so you don't get hurt. Or if you do, you might get a scratch and your skin can heal it up. It's also helping you keep your body temperature, regulated. So if you're too hot or too cold, if you're hot, you sweat, you release that heat. If you're cold, because that's why you get those goosebumps, right? Because it's going to help trap some heat in your skin and keep you warmer. And your skin's also important so that you kind of are aware of the world around you. Temperature, yes. Pressure. Have you ever had a mosquito bite that's itchy? Your skin tells you need to scratch and go after it. And then also it helps with other functions in the body, like producing vitamin D, which we explained is important, for your bone health and other health functions like your immune system. So the skin's got a big job to do, which is why it's the biggest organ.
And so Ava's question is, why is her skin different from her friends? And this will come into melanin.
Yeah, so we all have cells in our skin. They're called melanocytes, and these are cells that produce pigment. And what's unique about all of us is that how much pigment or melanin we produce is based on genetics. We get this usually from our moms and our dads. Now, we all have the same relative number of pigment cells or those melanocyte cells, but how much pigment they produce is usually, again, genetically determined. And mom and dad kind of determine that for us. So for example, in my family, my husband he has darker skin. He's Hispanic and he's also Italian heritage. I have Northern European, so I'm fair. So our kids are kind of a mix of both. Now, sometimes in families where parents have similar skin coloring, you might be similar to mom or dad or a slight different shade. And that is just because of the genes that get passed down and make your skin a different color, which makes you uniquely you. And then other things can affect that. You can go out into the sun. So, sometimes when you go out in the sun, you'll notice your skin can get dark, even very quickly. We call it immediate darkening, like 15, 20 minutes. And that's kind of a really cool phenomenon where ultraviolet light or the sun's rays actually interact with those pigment producing cells and create a little bit more pigment. And not everyone's skin can do that the same. It's just how we're all made differently, but it's kind of unique if yours can produce more, or some people can produce just a little. And then some people's skin that doesn't produce much pigment at all, and they might just, burn or stay pink in color. And what's important though, we can't forget, is to protect our skin with sunscreen, regardless of how much pigment that we can produce, just to make sure we're reducing our risk of skin cancer. And it's good for overall skin health.
Wonderful. So now we have our image of the skin. Ava's like, what is that?
Yeah, it's a busy, busy picture, isn't it? So what I like to tell, everyone, when you think of skin, just think of basically of three main layers. You have two main layers to your skin. You have the top layer, which we call the epidermis, and then you have the second layer that we call the dermis, and then below it we have what we call fat, or some people call it the hypodermis or they call it subcutaneous tissue. But let's just call it fat. That's easy. We kind of all know that we have a little bit of fat underneath our skin. But if you look at kind of the busy diagram that we have here, what it shows you, that top layer, which is kind of a darker shade of brown, that's your epidermis. And you'll see here that's kind of a thin area of skin. And it's right, the epidermis is pretty thin. It can be thicker depending upon if it's maybe like your elbow or your knee or your palm or your sole. It might be a little thicker in those areas, really thin, maybe on your eyelid, but overall kind of a thin layer, that top layer. And in that top layer is actually where the pigment cells and melanocytes live. They live at the bottom part of that top layer and produce pigment. And then over time, you have new cells that come up in that top layer, and you don't even know it's taking place because it happens over kind of a slow time frame. So you get new healthy cells that come up over time. Now, the second layer, the dermis, that's where it looks kind of busy. You see all this action going on, right? All these different pieces that are included in here. So what you're going to see is that these kind of lines that are coming up and coming up to the top are where the hair follicles are. And the dermis, that's where your hair follicles live. Your hair follicles are where hair comes from. And that's whether it's hair on your head, it might be your eyelashes, your eyebrows, or maybe hair on your arm. But they come out of that second layer of the dermis. Surrounding that can also be an oil gland, and that helps condition the hair to help prevent it from getting too dried out. And also that oil goes up to the top of our skin to keep our skin also a little bit moisturized as well. In addition to the dermis, that second layer, lots of other things going on. You'll have nerves there that can help communicate, like if you're itchy or somebody's lightly scratching you, or pressure if somebody's pushing against your skin. You also have blood vessels there. Blood vessels are super important because where they're at there in the skin, they're helping deliver nutrients to the skin. And the skin needs nutrients to be healthy and to grow. And then also there you have collagen and elastin. Collagen and elastin are pretty important topics, and probably ask mom. She probably knows a lot about these because she's maybe worried about how the collagen and elastin is doing over time. But these are important fibers in your skin that give your skin firmness or make it feel sort of, we call it taut or tight. And they also keep people looking pretty young if that collagen's working pretty well and the elastin's in good shape as well. And that's also located here in the dermis too. And then finally, the sweat glands are here too. As we mentioned before, skin's really important to help keep our body temperature right where it needs to be and balanced. So when you're hot and you sweat, that's coming up through the second layer of the skin where the sweat glands live there as well. So it's kind of unique. There's a lot of action going on in that dermis. Now below, you'll see kind of the little lighter color here, the fat that's hanging out here. Fat's important too. Fat's there to cushion, some of the things that live in the dermis. It's kind of like a shock absorber if you get a little bump or you hit something. So fat's important to have there as well. And that kind of what rounds out the 3 layers of our skin.
Beautiful. It was like, okay, so now I want to know what happens when I cut my skin.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you get a cut on your skin, your body is amazing. You have what's called an immune system. It's the same thing that helps you if you get a cold or you get the flu, it's going to help you feel better and fight that off. What happens when you get a cut, your immune system kind of stops and says, ooh, what's happening here in the skin? And a bunch of cells will then go into the skin where that cut is, and they all serve a different role, but those cells will help stop if there's bleeding, help stop the bleeding. And then also those cells will help regenerate new skin. And so over time, that's how your body has the ability to heal up a cut. It's pretty smart if you think about it. Your body's kind of always on watch for things that aren't behaving right, and the skin is no exception. So if you have something as simple as a bug bite or a cut, your body's going to use the immune system to go in and fix it up properly.
Ava says, now that we're talking about the skin, I know that my neighbor Jesse, he's like 13 years old. He goes to the big school and he has all these bumps all over his face. What is that?
The bumps you're referencing, or you're talking about
Acne.
acne? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page with you. Yeah, so bumps like that are kind of terrible to have. So those bumps, we call it acne. So acne is kind of where there's a combination of what's going on in the body. You have hormone changes that are happening, and then you have oil production that goes up, and then you have germs or bacteria on the skin, and they kind of have a little party and all of a sudden make these red inflamed bumps on the skin. Sometimes you can pop them and you get pus that comes out if you've ever watched that on TV, or you've seen somebody do it maybe in the mirror. And sometimes they don't pop either. Sometimes people will leave them there and they'll heal up and might even leave a dark mark behind, which is even more annoying. But acne is super common. It's something that typically happens around that time when you head to the big school, but there are ways to treat it. And it's nothing that he's doing. It's not his fault. It doesn't have anything to do with how well necessarily he cleans his face. It's just kind of something that happens in people that might be a little predisposed, again, maybe because of mom and dad, and then also just because of the changes that are happening to our body and the hormones that are being produced. Sometimes that makes acne bumps pop up too.
Okay, so now we're going to talk to Ava and her mom, Dominique, about some common conditions that kids experience. You've already gone over acne and some ways that they can prevent it, including gentle cleansing and avoid picking and a healthy diet. What about eczema or atopic dermatitis? What's a simple way for her to understand, and what can she do if she experiences that?
I always tell people when you get eczema or atopic dermatitis, this is kind of where your skin, you can see in the diagram, it looks pretty tight, right? That top layer, it looks all like it's nice and smooth. And eczema skin, I tell you, it's kind of like that top layer starts to have almost holes in it. And the best way I explain is kind of with my hand. You can kind of see little spaces in between my hand. And if your skin kind of has these little holes in it, you can have water that's lost, water that's not retained, or moisture that's retained, and things can get into the skin. So too, it's when your skin barrier isn't as strong as it should be. And so in eczema skin, then because of that, you can get a lot of inflammation that occurs. That immune system that lives in your skin gets pretty angry. And also because the skin gets dried out, it fuels this and becomes a process of having skin that the barrier is not strong like it should be, the immune system that's kind of aggravated or mad about it. And then together they create these dry, itchy, scaly spots that you see on the skin. And it's very common when we're young, even as babies. It can then present later on in life, or maybe not even to teenage years, and sometimes not even into adulthood, or even when your parents get older, even your grandparents could develop eczema for the first time. So when we see it, what we do is we try to repair the barrier. We try to do gentle cleansing, good moisturizer emollients that kind of can help seal in. I tell you, if you think about it as kind of skin with holes in it, where it prevents that water loss or moisture loss, it keeps it inside. And then we can use medicines in cream forms, or sometimes even medicines you can take by mouth. And although I know it can be scary for kids, yes, even some that are shots, but it can help really control the inflammation and make all those dry, itchy, scaly spots go away.
Yeah, we want to shout out our good friend alumni, Justin Love, who did a whole episode on eczema and why it won't go away. We'll have that link in the description box for you. And how would you explain, in a simple way, sunburn?
Sunburn. Oh, yes. So this is when too much of a good thing becomes a problem. We all love the sun, right? Even as dermatologists. And I tell my patients, I don't want you to live like a vampire or a hermit. But when you get too much sun, unfortunately, the skin, like anything else, can respond where, it gets a sunburn. And basically, from that heat and sun exposure, it basically kills the skin cells in your skin. And as a result, it creates inflammation. Some of the skin cells actually die off, and you see where the skin actually can turn red, and then over time might even blister if by chance there was enough exposure to where it happened deeper in the skin. And then when you're out of that and you let it heal up, that's where you get that peel, because literally you've killed off kind of that top layer because that was such intense sun exposure. So it's really important that you put sunscreen on yourself, or you listen to mom and dad that they're helping you with sunscreen, or you maybe wear a hat or a sun shirt when you're out in the sun, especially for long periods of time, even sunglasses. And you also put a lip balm on, because those lips can also get sunburnt as well. But I always say that's always when there's too much of a good thing. Sun has a great purpose for us, but it's just important that we do it smarter so we can avoid the sunburn.
Yeah, we know not everyone's skin turns red, right?
Mhm.
So what can she look for if she's someone whose skin doesn't turn red?
So if you're not seeing shades of red, sometimes they go kind of purplish, more so in color. So some people, depending upon how much skin coloring you have, if you're on the fair end, you can look redder. As you get darker skin, it can look more purplish or even hyperpigmented as well. You can also feel more of a tightening of the skin too. Some people report more of a sensation change with excessive sun exposure. And of course, kind of that dry factor too. So I do, it's always kind of variable depending upon how dark your skin is. But for yourself, if you're out in the sun, and you notice that you're seeing kind of more pigmentation or even more shades on more, we call it violaceous or purplish color, that can be a sign that you're getting too much sun, or even sort of that tightening feel that some people will report even before they feel or notice a color change, I should say.
Yeah, my older years, I haven't had it as much as I did as a kid. I definitely used to burn and flake a lot. And you're right, the first thing I noticed was the skin tightening.
Hmm.
A lot on the nose, the forehead, and the shoulders. And then it would just flake. And then, is it true that the if you do have sunburn, that increases your risk for skin cancer?
Yeah, we have seen a correlation between sunburns and your risk of skin cancer. And so it is one of the things we really try to tell, folks to minimize burning. But even if you have the ability to get coloring and tan, which a lot of my patients can't, they have darker skin, so they rarely or never burn. I tell them the fact that you're producing more of that pigment or melanin is still sun damage. And I just explain we all just have different abilities to produce it. Unfortunately, I tend to maybe just burn. My husband tends to just tan. I have other people like, I just simply get darker. And so I tell them that's an advantage. You have a little bit more protection. But the whole reason that you're producing the pigment or the melanin in the first place is because you are getting some level of damage to the skin. We're just all blessed, differently genetically to produce different amounts. And so we still need to pay attention to that. And again, that's why it's important, no matter your skin coloring or skin type, you should still wear sunscreen.
Yeah, you did. I love how you describe that. And I want to shout out my another podcaster, Emily Chow. She's a 10th
Oh,
grader who just started the Sun podcast because just like Ava, who's learning about how to protect her skin for the first time and also the risk of skin cancer. Uh, Emily Chow recognized that her peers didn't know what to do. So she
yeah.
started this lovely little podcast in 10th grade called Sun. And that's exactly what she does. She talks about how the risk of sun exposure increases the risk for skin cancer and what they can do about it right now, whether in high school or younger.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so also, how would you describe warts?
Oh yes, warts. I think they're everyone's frustration. That's how I love to describe them. But warts are, spots on the skin that are caused by a virus, the human papilloma virus. There's over 100 strains of this virus, and unfortunately, it's just everywhere. We can't avoid it. So I to from your car doors to toys you might play with to kind of walking around the grocery store, you're going to encounter this virus. Unfortunately, then when it gets on the skin, if it's able to find a break in the skin and kind of get through, then it can grow and get inside our skin cells and create these kind of crusty, whitish bumps. Sometimes they're grayish looking. Sometimes they also can have a little bit of pigment in them as well. And then they'll just grow and grow. And they can pop up from your hands to the bottoms of your feet, sometimes even on the face, pretty much anywhere if that virus can get in. The downside is they're contagious. You want to be careful that you don't scratch or rub them or bite them, which sometimes people do, and they can get them inside their mouth. And then you do need to get rid of them, but it can be tough. I would tell you, viruses and warts, they're persistent. I tell you, if you had the dedication of a wart, you could do anything in life because they love to hang around in the skin. And so I always tell you, it's again not your fault. It's just kind of circumstance. You happen to pick them up, and they are tough to destroy. We do recommend, sometimes we freeze them or we paint medications on them like cantharidin or cantharidin on them to induce sort of a blister-like response. And it goes back to that immune system that we talked about in the anatomy session there. That our immune systems are pretty good at healing most things, but unfortunately, sometimes for warts, they'll just bypass a wart and act like, oh, it's okay for it to hang out there. And literally, if you had a cut next to it, it would probably heal the cut, but it would leave the wart alone. So if we do freeze or paint medicine on or anything on warts, the whole goal is to get the immune system excited, come in, check out that irritation, and hopefully eat up that wart as well. But sometimes we have to do it multiple times to be successful. And of course, they love to come back. So we have to be careful of that as well.
When you're talking and saying things like freezing and viruses, I can just hear Ava saying, "Not my skin."
Yeah, I can totally. That's usually the scary part. The virus thing, people are like, okay, I get it, a germ, but I don't know about that. So it can be a little scary. So sometimes that's why we use those medicines that we paint on, to kind of make it a little bit better and to kind of just make them understand, the goal is to get your body to help take care of this. And it just needs a little extra help. It's just having trouble doing it on its own.
And so some of Ava's friends are a little bit older and they're playing sports and they have experiencing fungal infections or fungal
Oh,
rhinos. What's going on? How can they prevent it? And what can they do if they develop it?
Yeah, no fun with those. Some of Ava's friends might be wrestlers. I always tease it's the wrestlers that just try. They're dermatologist dream patients. They always come back with something from hanging out and wrestling together with other folks. But fungal rashes are pretty common. So when you get a rash, a lot of people call it ringworm. That's probably the more common term when you see it on the body, and it kind of looks like rings. So it makes sense that people will call that ringworm. And it does have a little bit of scale. Often it's red, could be itchy. You can see it anywhere on the body, but very common. We'll see it on the arms or the legs. Some people even get it in the scalp, especially when we're younger. So you can get fungal rashes in the scalp area. Athletes also can get it in the groin area too. Even when we're younger, we can see that happen. The good news is that we can typically treat it. We use creams that go after the fungus and basically kill it off, so we can get it gone for you. We recommend not directly touching it. Technically, it can be contagious, although you don't always necessarily spread it. We tell people not to touch the area because you could spread it to other parts of your body, or in theory, potentially to somebody else. If you sweat a lot, if you have areas that are moist or in dark environments, you can be more likely to get fungal rashes or yeast type rashes. And sometimes too, we pick it up in the environment. Sometimes, pets can be carriers for it. So people that are very engaged outdoors, or maybe they work on a farm, or in our area, very rural, people participate in something called 4-H where they're raising animals. So we can definitely see exposures that way, but even your cat and dog can bring it in. So there can be sources you don't think about, and then also in the environment. But the good news is very easy to treat, even though very common.
In all of our age groups.
Yes, yes.
So we'll throw up another graphic during post-production that shows a really detailed image
Okay.
of hair. So let's move on to the hair follicle. And I forgot to say, when we talk about anatomy and physiology, anatomy is the way something looks, and physiology is the way that it works or functions. And typically, if you take a class like that, you learn about both things. And we're hoping that we're doing a good job today in helping you understand how your skin, hair, and nails look and work. So when it comes to the hair, we know that there's different types of hair: straight, wavy, curly, coily, and hair grows from follicles in the dermis. How would you explain that to Ava?
Yeah, I tell you again, it's what all makes us unique. Our hair follicle is basically, I tell people, it's the place where all of our hair comes from. It's kind of like, people call it like the root, where your hair comes out or from. And so if you think about it, kind of similar to a plant, if you've ever planted a flower, the flower will grow up, and all flowers look different, right? You can see daffodils or tulips, but they're all beautiful. And so hair follicles are like that too. We all have different hair follicles, which again, we typically get from mom and dad. And because of that, our hair may grow differently. Some people grow hair that actually is very straight, or some people grow hair that's very curly. Some people will grow hair that is more fine in texture. It feels kind of softer or finer. Some people describe their hair more coarse or thick in nature. And, a lot of it has to do with just genetics. It's just how unique kind of that hair follicle is, and then what it gives us because of mom and dad. And then usually we'll see different pigment too. And that also is something that we get from mom and dad. So depending upon the amount of pigment or type of pigment we have, that then decides, okay, what kind of hair color? Are we going to have one that's blacker in color or brown? Or are we going to have one that's more blonde or red? Or over time, maybe we don't produce much of that pigment anymore, and now we're getting gray and white, which happens to the best of us over time. But in general, it's all about that hair follicle. It's unique to you and me, and we can thank our moms and dads for that. And that's why we all have different types of hair.
And does it have a big role or play a big job?
Yes, the hair follicle is super important because it's where everything comes from. And whether it's the hair that's going to be on your head or your eyebrows or your eyelashes, hair is very important. I think people think about it, because it does affect us, from a culture standpoint. We all like our hair to look prettier. We like to style it. It makes us feel confident. People that are losing their hair, it's very, sad for them and very emotional for them. But our hair was made to help us. The hair on our heads help us with temperature and to keep, regulated in the body, just like our other skin. Eyelashes to keep, dust and dirt out of our eyes. Eyebrows to probably help with sweat and things running down. So hair serves a purpose too. So that hair follicle is super important because that's where all the hair comes from. So we want to take care of it and nourish it so that we can keep our hairs growing healthy.
And not too long from now, Ava might start to see hair under her arms and in between her legs, right?
Yeah, totally normal. So we do start to develop hair in special areas as we get a little bit older. And again, probably serves a purpose in that area to keep, areas from warm, or again, to keep those areas clean. And it's one of those things, as that hair grows, it's completely normal. We all get it. And if that hair bothers you, there are things you can do to deal with it, but it's a normal part of just getting older like anything else.
Wonderful. So let's talk about some common things that she may be familiar with, like those dry, flaky things on her scalp. Dandruff?
Yeah, we see a lot of that. And that's something too that times I think, we'll see it a lot when you're about that 10, 11, 12 years of age. You'll see that oil production go up on the scalp and the rest of our skin, which is normal. Hormones kind of make that happen. And then what happens is that you'll start to see some flaking usually develop because there's yeast that live on our scalp skin. So I know we get scared of germs, but believe it or not, there are germs all over our skin and they're supposed to be there. But sometimes our bodies can react a little bit to those being there. In particular, often yeast on the scalp skin can lead to these dry, scaly, flaky areas that can often itch, or they can leave behind flakes where you don't even want to wear dark clothes because you feel like everyone can see that your scalp is flaking. So it can be tough to treat because, often people are only washing their hair maybe every few weeks. I have some patients, they wash once a month because they've got their hair styled. And it's important to increase that washing to help, but it can be really challenging because it's just inconvenient when you're styling your hair. And then we have medicated shampoos or creams that we can do to help with that as well. The hard part too, it can be chronic where it likes to hang around for a while, but eventually for most people it gets better over time. And we can find a balance of using, prescription or over-the-counter medicines and how we wash to really get it under control.
So Ava has a classmate who doesn't have any hair on their head, and she wants to know what's wrong.
Yeah, and that can be hard. A lot of times, if you're seeing it in classmates, Ava, especially with your age group, often it's a condition that we call alopecia areata. It also could be some of kiddos in your class can undergo treatment, like for cancer and lose all their hair. There's lots of reasons why somebody might lose their hair. The first thing I would say before you're even wondering why is to make sure that you still treat that person with respect and also know that they're probably going through a hard time because you probably can imagine, oh my gosh, if I lost all my hair, I don't even know if I could go to school. And probably for that little girl or boy, they're probably having a tough time going to school too without their hair. So being their friend and being supportive would be the first thing I would say. And then, you might find out why they've lost their hair. Sometimes they actually have a scalp condition where we talked about those immune cells being helpful to fight off infection or go after a wart. Sometimes they're confused and they attack that hair follicle, which is so important for hair to grow, and then the hair can't grow. And then sometimes people take medicines or they're being treated and their hair doesn't grow either. So there are different reasons why that can happen, especially in children. So it's important, that that's okay. And then to really just be their friend because it's probably super tough on them when they don't have hair.
That was beautiful. And if there's a kid at home that's listening to this and they don't, maybe they're just experiencing it very early or their mom is listening, what's the first step they should take?
If you ever notice, hair loss or changes in your hair, skin, or nails, you definitely want to see your dermatologist. I think people are afraid to come in, they think, oh, it'll be fine, or, it'll probably improve on its own. And that can be true for a lot of things, right? But sometimes, especially for hair, it's always best if we catch it early because hair can take a while to come back. Not as common, always in children, but especially in adults, we see forms of hair loss where that hair follicle gets beat up so much with inflammation, it gets scarred and it can't grow hair anymore. So if we could, identify the reason early on and start treatment, that would be the most exciting part for us because hopefully we'd be able to have an impact. And we tell you, don't be afraid and don't think it's, minor. Sometimes too, even if your son or daughter doesn't say much about it, they may be afraid to think of it as a big deal or not ready to even tell you. So I always say it's never too early to come in. And sometimes if it's something that might just go away, we can give reassurance. Or if it's something more serious, we can talk about the diagnosis and treatment.
Hi, I'm Alicia from the Melanin Initiative Podcast. Our mission is twofold. One, to simplify complex health information so you feel empowered to ask questions, educated on how to manage your health, and confident to navigate the healthcare system. And two, to elevate the expertise of nurses, spotlight the diverse career opportunities within the healthcare industry, and inform our peers how to leverage their expertise as clinicians and entrepreneurs. In less than 2 years, we've grown to over 50,000 views and 1,000 downloads with an international audience spanning the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and more. Our engaged listeners are professionals, entrepreneurs aged 25 to 44 who value authentic, impactful content. Want to connect with this dynamic audience? Advertise with us. Send in your 1-minute video ad and let's amplify your brand. Email tmi.melanin@gmail.com for rates and details. Let's work together.
Yeah, you did a beautiful job explaining that. And yeah, it can definitely be scary when we see our body changing like that. But just like Dr. Trotter explained, there's people out here and there's resources that can help you and your family get through this. And I love what you said about stepping up and being their friend, because school is a tough place to be
Yes.
when you look different than everybody else,
Hmm.
especially when you don't have answers and
Yeah, exactly.
everybody has questions. And what about lice?
Oh yes. Oh, but lice I think is something that frightens folks, and it's something that I always ask, "What's lice?" And I was like, "Well, I try to explain, that we call these parasites, that, and again, I told you they're not necessarily full parasites, but they do like to live on our body where they basically attach to the hair follicle. Like we call them little mites is the best way to think about them. Excuse me, not parasites, but mites that live on the hair shaft, but they're like teeny tiny, but you can actually see them, and they can be passed from person to person. Often people have shared hats or they've shared coats or blankets or brushes. And what they do is they attach to the hair follicle, and believe it or not, yes, they lay eggs. They want to live too, like anything else, but they can create a lot of itchiness. So people will report itchiness in their scalp, little bumps that they can feel. And commonly what I'll see is people will come in for a rash on the back of their neck, not even associated with something going on in the scalp. And we'll actually do an exam and we'll say, oh, we can see these little guys actually running around. You can see them moving often. They have different stages of life that you can appreciate it. And then once you identify them, the good news is we can treat them. You can get rid of them. There are certain topicals you can put on the skin to actually get rid of those and actually treat the hair shaft itself to remove them. And then you can calm down any rash or itch with them. But just people get kind of scared or embarrassed if they think they could have lice. I say, well, no, it's easy to pick it up. I have a lot of older patients with it. They get it often from their grandkids because it's easily passed around at school, and it's just something you're close enough to each other, it can happen. But again, nothing to be embarrassed about and very easy to treat.
Yes, and very scary for all the other parents, right? When they hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, our last part of our lesson today is going to be the nails. What are they made of and what do they do?
Yeah, so our nails are pretty phenomenal. If you think about it, and I think very trendy now. Everyone loves painting their nails and going in. It's amazing to see all the designs and artwork that people can do with their nails, and such an expression of who we are. But the nails are a beautiful thing. Nails are made out of a protein that we call keratin. And this starts back at the base of our nail. If you've kind of looked over your nail and you can kind of see the base, or what we call the cuticle, this is kind of where the cells for your nail grow out over time. And our nails are important. They're meant to protect kind of the pad, or sort of that soft fleshy part of your finger at the tip. And then, yes, they're also probably meant as tools, for lack of a better term. If you have an itchy spot, your nails are very convenient to scratch. We think itching is probably important, probably was a way to tell us, oh, something's not right here. Maybe you do have something biting you, and your response is to scratch or itch it to get rid of that bug that's there. And then, of course, I think we use them for other tools that we don't think about, things around the house, taking stickers off, opening, cans, whatever else people love to use their nails for. But they have a great purpose. The downside is that sometimes, they can break or they can become fragile over time. And we do have conditions that affect the nail too in dermatology.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so Ava has some questions. She wants to know why hers grow so fast.
Oh, yeah. So, nails can grow at different rates. Part of that can be where you're at in life. So sometimes nails will grow a little quicker when we're younger because we're rapidly growing too. Sometimes they'll grow a little quicker too, like if a woman is pregnant and she has hormones or other things sort of, contribute to other things growing in the body, the nails can be affected and they might grow a little faster as well. Sometimes people report increased nail growth too with taking supplements or vitamins or things like that, where the nails might grow a little quicker as well. So everyone kind of has different nail growth rates. And part of it probably, again, I hate to say it, but goes back to mom and dad. They, decide a lot of things for us for our bodies just based on those genes that get passed down to us. And some people in families, they have super strong nails that grow really well. And other people in their families, the nails just don't tend to grow as quickly or as nicely. So part of that, again, is due to mom and dad as well.
Mom and dad are getting in a lot of trouble.
They are.
Ava's like, finally, I'm not the only one. She wants to know why her nails turn white when she presses on them.
Yeah, so your nails have blood flow in them. And so nails tend to carry, for some people, like it can be different coloring. It might look more pinky, more red, or just might look a little bit on kind of the lighter side of coloring. And then when you push on it, you will see that go away, or it looks kind of more whitish in nature. And it's because you're pushing out the blood from those blood vessels. The blood vessels that live there in the nail bed, they're providing nutrition, all the things your nails need to grow and be healthy. And because that keratin, or the nail plate, which is the flat part of your nail that you can see, is, a little bit kind of like see-through, or what you might call transparent, often you can see a little hint of like a slight faint pink, or some people it's more red, depending upon how thick that area is. And then when you push on it, you push the blood out. So usually then the nails will look kind of whitish in color. And so that's very normal. When you take your finger off, you kind of look for that to come back and see if that coloring comes back into the nail plate. And typically it does. So it's a normal thing that you don't have to be worried about at all.
Oh, wonderful. So if kids notice that their nails are thin and break really easily, what's some recommendations you would have for them?
So part of it, you want to take a peek at what are we doing with our nails. Sometimes, our nails kind of behave based on what we use our hands for. So some people are in water a lot, so their nails tend to get thinned out over time, or they might be a little bit more brittle because they are in water. Some of my swimmers have that problem if they love to swim, or they notice it maybe in the summer months when they're hanging out at the pool throughout that time. And then also too, things that they're doing with their nails too, just normal habits. I'm surprised more and more how many people are wearing fake nails, even children that are coming in or having their nails polished all the time, and some of the damage that some of the things that we love to do to our nails, how they can cause them to be thin or a little brittle. And then also making sure that they're not doing anything to their nails. Some people wind up picking their nails or biting their nails. And we do see this a lot in children, especially if they might be more nervous or they might feel anxious at times. And sometimes we're finding out about, well, how's school going, or how's family life? How are mom and dad? I did have a patient that came through, and I would tell you this is common. Their mom and dad were getting a divorce. And so, she was very stressed. And this little girl was 8 years old. And so she was biting her nails. Then she started like peeling the nail back. So it was something she was actually doing that we had to pay particular attention to, because it wasn't necessarily a skin issue for her. This was something where she was just real stressed about what was going on with mom and dad. So I think that's also something that we have to think about too, and especially in children who tend to, in general, have pretty healthy nails. And then also looking at medicines, sometimes medicines we take, sometimes underlying health issues, thyroid problems. We do have to look at that too if the nails aren't good. And of course, nutrition, making sure we're eating well. Luckily, for the most part, nutrition-wise, we tend to do pretty well here in the US, but still we do have nutritional deficiencies where we don't have a great diet, and that also adds to our nails being kind of thin as well.
And what about proper health of the nail to prevent ingrown toenails?
Oh yes, that's always a challenge. I don't know about Ava. If we have to feel if you don't mind getting your nails cut. My kiddos, toenails still kind of bother them. They don't like the fact I think they can see it, so I make it where they can watch me cut them. But what's important when you cut your nails is you don't want to go too short. You want to kind of follow the natural shape of your nail. Sometimes there's a tendency, especially on the big toe where that nail is, to cut it at an angle and pretty short down to the side. And when we do that, unfortunately, then when the nail wants to grow back, sometimes it can grow back actually into the skin itself. And that can create a pretty powerful, painful bump in that area. And sometimes, unfortunately, then the nail itself has to be removed. So I tell you, if you're afraid to cut, file. That's a safe option. It can keep it where you don't go too tight or too short. You can also have mom and dad obviously cut too. And then, just be careful, that you don't traumatize the nail, try to be careful with your shoes you're wearing, or if you're in sports, to make sure your feet, your toenails, all of those feel appropriate with kind of just normal wear and tear. So we're not adding to it with any trauma to the nail as well.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you have any resources for parents who might want to start having these conversations with their kids?
Yeah, we have actually through, and I'll get the name for you here, but it's through our pediatric derm. So that's probably one of the best resources that I utilize. If besides your dermatologist, your family doctor, if you want to talk with them more about it, online resources I think are tough for kids. That might be a new idea for you guys for a podcast, is talking more about just kids with what you're doing. Because I feel
Just
like
kids,
there's
Shannon.
not, yeah.
That's
There it is. I think we just came up with it, because honestly, I feel like that's lacking. I enjoy talking with children. My husband laughs that I like to make, too many stories for my little ones, but I always like to check, am I getting comprehension? Because there's not a lot out there for children, but now they're getting out there. And so they're learning things maybe at a higher level, or it just doesn't make sense to them. So yeah, we might have a new podcast and idea in mind.
You and your kids, girl, you have built-in guests.
I do. They would be a riot too.
They can take over the family business
Yeah.
eventually. Yeah, I love that. So everyone should tune into Dr. Trotter's podcast. for this new series on just kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's so many questions that they have and we have as adults.
Yeah.
And can you just let our guests know how they can support you and where to find you on the internet?
Of course. Well, and now I know Just Kids will let you know what's coming out. And then Dermot Trotter, Don't Swear About Skincare. This is a podcast, so we might have to do some kid-focused episodes, but definitely talking everything skin, for hopefully, the average person to learn a little bit more about skin conditions, A to Z, cosmetic, medical. And you can find us on TikTok as well as Instagram, Dr. Shannon C. Trotter as well.
It's been a delight. I thank you so much for coming on twice and helping us kick off our new series. And as a benefit, you are kicking off your new series too.
Whole new podcast.
Yeah, and your kids you don't even have to come up with ideas anymore. You just have to sit at the dinner table. Your kids are you're wait, slow down. I can't come up with all these ideas. But we hope that we've been able to encourage open conversations with our guests and your children about body changes. Kids should feel comfortable asking these questions, and we hope in turn you feel comfortable and confident answering them. Use visuals like we did today. And if you're listening, tune in and watch us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook so you can see the images that we've put up. It makes it fun. It makes it easier for you to tell them what it is that you're talking about when it comes to skin, hair, and nails. And then those of you who are listening, let us know in the comments, what's the funniest body-related question your kids have asked? You can email us your questions and show ideas at tmi.melanin@gmail.com. There's still time. You can subscribe, leave a comment, share this information with your friends, give us a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. Every time you engage with us, it lets the algorithm know that this information is important. So that when Ava and her friends look for topics like this and the new Just Kids series, that will show up higher in their search results. At the time of this recording, we release new videos every Sunday at noon Eastern on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we drop the audio at 5 a.m. on all your favorite podcast apps so that our night shift friends can be the first to get something and not the last. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.